Warning, possible spoilers ahead. So Godzilla, King of the Monsters will be the third installment from the MonsterVerse franchise. This film is the following sequel to the Godzilla movie back in 2014. The MonsterVerse's other main protagonist monster is King Kong from the franchise's second release film, Kong Skull Island. The plot follows humanity's survival in an age of god-sized monsters that walk the earth. 3 new monsters will be introduced to challenge Godzilla for supremacy. Rodan, Marthra, or as Henry Calvis would say it,
Kill Martha! Martha!
and King Ghidorah. Reprising their roles from the last Godzilla movie will be Sally Hawkins as Dr. Vivian Graham, O'Shea Jackson Jr. as Chief Warrant Officer Barnes, and Ken Watanabe as Dr. Irishiru Sarazawa. So one thing that bothers me about Watanabe's character is his constant constipated expression that he has. He looked ill and sick from the 2014 film, and from what I gather in the trailer, he'll look even worse in the sequel. Someone get my man a barf bag, please. Speaking of O-faces, the trailer already spoiled the moments of suspense the humans have when they see the huge monsters. I wanted to see that in the movie, not the trailers. Oh, and if you didn't already notice, that Bama from Stranger Things is in the movie too. Something I want to say about Charles Dance's line from the trailer. Now, I like Charles Dance, and I thought he was incredible in Game of Thrones. But I think it's cheesy that they have his character in another fictional world where dragon-like beasts roam the world, and they give him a line that semi-references to Game of Thrones. He should be really appreciated and respected as an actor, and not just as that guy from Game of Thrones. Garth Edwards, who directed Godzilla in 2014, walked out from directing this Godzilla sequel to pursue small project films instead. Michael Dougherty was selected to take the helm for Godzilla King of the Monsters. In case you're not familiar with Michael Dougherty's work, he's only directed 2 mediocre horror films, Trick or Treat and Krampus. He also wrote Superman Returns, which was the most boring comic book movie I've ever seen, and X-Men Apocalypse. And if you've seen my video for Dark Phoenix trailer, you know how I passionately hated that movie. Godzilla King of the Monsters will be Dougherty's first major movie he's gonna direct. I'm gonna guess the studio needed an amateur director they can bully and force to make bland studio products. So the MonsterVerse was produced by Legendary Entertainment and co-produced by Warner Brothers with their first installment of Godzilla in 2014. The MonsterVerse tries to follow the Marvel Cinematic Universe, where it introduces its main protagonists first in their own movies, before joining them together in the end of the trilogy. Iron Man in 2008 was the first film that started opening a series of superhero films. Shortly after, DC did the same thing, except poorly.
Yeah. Oh, something's definitely bleeding.
Speaking of the 2014 film of Godzilla, I was super disappointed in the movie. I just wish it was less humans and more monster screen time. For a movie that focuses on the monsters and uses humans to drive the plot, there's no reason for the film to show an 85-15 ratio between the two. Bryan Cranston's character was probably the only driving force that made the tone of the movie interesting. And what did they do? I honestly lost complete interest in the movie after that. I mean, the movie wanted to push as much human screen time, and they killed their one actor that has proven to bring suspense and drama narrative to audiences. Bryan Cranston and Ken Watanabe were the only good actors that were given terrible scripts in this movie, in my opinion. That's my main problem with the film. Godzilla was more interesting than any of the human leads. To me, no one mattered aside from Bryan Cranston, and they killed him. The second installment of the franchise, Kong Skull Island, had lame deaths and cliche moments. I agreed with most of the critics. I thought it was a silly B movie overall. Samuel Jackson's character was probably the only interesting factor in the movie. Godzilla, King of the Monsters will set the stage for the upcoming final installment of the MonsterVerse with Godzilla vs. King Kong, which is set to release in 2020. Audiences should be scared and optimistic for this film for a couple of reasons. The director for Godzilla vs. Kong will be Adam Wingard. He's another horror director that did segments in the VHS movies. He also did the reboot for Blair Witch in 2016, and he did Death Note, the live film, in 2017 from Netflix. If you've seen the Death Note film, you know exactly how awful and terrible he is as a director. The film is a complete joke compared to the graphic novel and animated series. I feel sorry for anyone that watches that film first before watching the anime series. The show is amazing and stands to me as one of the best animes ever made. Leave it to Adam Wingard to destroy Death Note's reputation in 2017 with his disgusting live-action film. Adam also directed the film You're Next, which I thought was an interesting gore film, but lacked focus of being a horror genre with the movie trying to be funny at the same time. The Cabin in the Woods film in 2012 was a good example of mixing both horror and comedy perfectly in a story. One last thing I wanted to talk about was the climaxing fight, or alliance, depending on the story structure will be in the movie, between Godzilla and Kong in 2020. How will both protagonist monsters be equally matched? I mean, Godzilla looks like a gigantic beast compared to King Kong. King Kong clearly doesn't have a match against Godzilla. If you look at both of their films, Godzilla looks like he's towering over skyscrapers, and his Gamma Blast will devastate anything in its path. Kong looks like he's seriously outmatched. I mean, look at him, they can't even compare, look at them. I don't know how the movie will be able to explain and pull off their fight sequences. Can't be too surprised if the Death Note director Adam Wingard will nerf the hell out of Godzilla just so he can be equal to the size of King Kong. I'm sure the director will put a lot of his talent that he does for his other movies in Godzilla vs. Kong 2020. Some good things about the trailer. The visuals in the film look pretty good. The designs of the monsters look exotic. The trailer leaves a mystery of how the monsters will look in detail, with smoke and darkness screening them, which I think is cool. I hope this movie's story is crafted well and doesn't share the same formula compared to Godzilla in 2014. They better have more monster screen time and less human screen time. I don't want to see 100 minutes of every actor's awe face. They already spoiled that for me in the trailer. I'm also curious how Vera Farmiga will do in the film. Hopefully she'll have more interesting role than Elizabeth Olsen's character from the first Godzilla movie. Olsen's role was absolutely boring in my opinion. With that, Godzilla King of the Monsters is set to release in May 2019. If you want to watch an overall good Godzilla movie until then, I suggest you watch Shin Godzilla. It's probably the most decent and scary of all the Godzilla films. Thank you for listening, and stay tuned with my channel for more upcoming trailer review rants.